My name's Gavin Beaver, and I'll introduce our expert speakers as we go. Just, I guess, a couple of housekeeping things so that you make the most of this opportunity. As I was saying as people were coming in, if you'd like to chat with us, just use the chat icon down the bottom or at the top of your screen, and also the Q&A function. So there's a Q&A tab that you'll be able to use. So just ask any questions as we go. Rachel is here with us and myself, so we'll monitor the chats and the Q&A as we go. And the experts that are presenting today are ready to answer your questions. So I work with a project called Extension Oz, and we're based at a property just south of Bendigo. So I suppose we actually for the last decade or so have been living and breathing the digital world. And up in the top right hand corner of that image, the photograph about 5 or 6 k's from us is a phone tower with an NBN capable setup on it. So that's been a game changer for us. 20 years when we came back to the farm, it was all dial up, and we've ridden the wave through to now where we have wireless NBN. Which is, has increased the capability of us to operate like this amazingly. We'll hear more about connectivity as we go today. So that's our family, a 22-year-old, an 18-year-old, and Heather, who works in the business here with me, Cumbria Consultants. And I guess we learn a lot as we go forward by watching particularly the next generation come through. We're at 22, the internet started in 94, so it's been a way of life for them. And the analogy I've given before in these webinars is that, back in the day, 10 or 15 years ago, if you wanted to wreck my life, you'd run something out of fuel or empty a filing cabinet. Now, for most people, it is have no internet for a day. So we're so dependent upon this connectivity, and our farm businesses are taking advantage of that. And today will be more about what those opportunities are like and what is evolving with the Internet of Things. So the project that has brought my association and actually several others into this initiative, looking at digital literacy for the agricultural sector, is because Extension Oz is an initiative of these 3 agencies. And what Extension Oz has been for the last, it's coming up for 9 years, has been networking experts in different subject areas together. And what you hear from Nico Lyons, who heads up the automatic milking community practice today, and their experience with the Internet of Things. But essentially it's about these experts that are all over the country and with different agencies. And in fact, in Nico's case, as an example, he's networked in with people internationally in respect to automatic milking and the Internet of Things for dairying, who then are really focused on helping end users with information. So it's a digital collaborative, but it's about getting information, research and development outcomes out as quickly as possible and able to react in real time to questions from people. So that's the background of our involvement. So what is this about today though? So we're really going to take you on a bit of a tour from, what is the Internet of Things, which perhaps many of you have heard that sort of story before, but it's really then taking you through on a journey as part of the webinar to what are the opportunities of today and how to consider the Internet of Things as things stand currently. So we hope that today you'll all potentially learn something, whether you're an expert or whether you're a first timer, but it's all about helping link you through to opportunities and then perhaps being able to consider those for farm businesses as they stand today. So let's just think about connectivity. So, the last decade, we've gone to this situation where we can sit in an auto steer and we can have a tablet and we can do things, receive information from the farm, or we can listen to the news, or, we can entertain ourselves. So basically this connectivity has become everywhere, and the Internet of Things is perhaps, maybe we won't put a straw poll out now to see how many of you are taking absolutely everywhere, but I've no doubt there are people in the room, as it were, that are. But that's just the reality of today, that this connectivity and what it can do for us, that functionality, is what we can now leverage. So today is really about considering what can be leveraged for farm businesses into the Internet of Things. I've used this cartoon very often. I think it's a great cartoon for this digital space, but the point I would make here, I guess, is that from the Internet of Things perspective, some industries are probably already on the boat, and we'll hear from Daring with some mature Internet of Things technology. And for other industries, we're probably still sitting on the rock, not sure about getting on the boat. But we'll discuss that further today. But the reality is, and the point that we would like to make, is that at some stage, as things evolve and it becomes simpler and more accessible, then we probably will all need to be on the boat, because the paradigm in respect to how farms are connected and managed will shift. And I guess, you know, this sort of thing, the networking approach on farm, is what we're going to discuss today. So I'd like to introduce our first expert now from Agriculture Victoria, Andy Clark. So Andy can explain his role and then lead you through an initial understanding about what the Internet of Things is.
Okay. Hi, Gavin. My name's Andy Clark. I'm part of Agriculture Victoria. I'm just trying to take the screen so I can turn my camera on, but I'm not sure I can. Sorry about that.
That's okay. One of the things we're doing today is collaborating across. So the internet's pretty challenged today because of there's so many people in Victoria online with all the changes. So you'll just have to bear with us as we sort things out. And Andy, as you go into the understanding the Internet of Things, let's run that poll where we can just get a sense of who you are and what your interest is. And we'll all share the results of the poll and give us a bit of a picture of who we're talking to today.
Cool. And Gavin, you might need to switch on my camera, if that's okay.
Sure. So Andy, if you just pop that poll up.
No, I don't. If you can, I don't have the poll.
Okay. We'll just, to regress things, we'll just perhaps run the video now, Andy, on the Internet of Things. It just goes for 2 minutes and I'll sort out the IT stuff.
Digital technology such as the Internet of Things is driving change in agriculture. So, what is the Internet of Things and what does it mean for farmers? The Internet of Things, or IoT, refers to devices or things that are embedded with a sensor so they can measure and transmit data via a network. Devices can mean anything from pumps, sheds, and tractors to weather stations. Essentially, IoT means these physical devices can send and receive information via the internet. On farms, IoT allows devices across a farm to measure all kinds of data remotely and provide this information to the farmer in real time. IoT devices can gather information like soil moisture, chemical application, dam levels, and livestock health, as well as monitor fences, vehicles, and weather. Information generated by IoT devices allows farmers to track farm operations and performance, make better informed decisions to improve farm productivity and yield, and respond more quickly to their conditions, saving time and money. It's putting the data behind the all-important farmer gut instinct, whether that be knowing when to check on water supply to a trough, how much fertiliser to apply to a crop, and which ewe to check during lambing. The Victorian Government is committed to driving the uptake of digital technology, including IoT, in agriculture. To support this, Agriculture Victoria is rolling out a $12 million on-farm Internet of Things trial. The trial is part of the government's plan to increase digital connectivity and usability in regional Victoria. IoT infrastructure is being set up in 4 trial regions to enable farmers in sheep, cropping, dairy, and horticulture to work with technology providers to investigate how IoT technology can benefit farmers. The trial will test the on-farm impact of IoT, support Victorian farms to become IoT enabled, and help place Victorian farmers at the forefront of the digital agriculture revolution. Are you ready to investigate the next frontier of agriculture? Find out how you can get involved at agriculture.vic.gov.au/digital-ag.
Okay, so that gives you a good idea on I guess a basic understanding of IoT and what Agriculture Victoria is doing. I'll hand across now to Andy. So Andy, you'll be able to switch your camera on now. And
Okay. Cool. So hi. Yeah, so that video is one that was put together for the Internet of Things trial, which I'm a part of. I'm responsible for the Horticulture trial, which is running across Greater Shepparton and Moira Shires. But I'll get more into that in a little bit. I've been involved in making things for the internet for quite a while now, pretty much since the internet started in the mid-90s. I was lucky enough to be at RMIT when they got some different kinds of connectivity there that allowed for the very early internet. And then since then works mostly in digital side of things, but for digital marketing. And in about 2014, I think it was, I started looking at other uses for the technology, which I'd been building in the digital marketing space to put across into something else, to something that was a bit more meaningful. And agriculture was this place for that, mostly through family connections and growing up around the Shepparton area. So kind of get into a little bit about, so the Internet of Things, it is a bit of a buzz phase buzz term when it comes to what it is. It's ubiquitous computing. There's another one that was used for years. Connected devices is something that's been around for quite a while. But this idea now that you can put the little chips in that can connect to this thing called the internet, and these things can start talking and sending messages to the internet, to like dashboards or a way for you to display the data or text message or anything that's through this connectivity is kind of what this kind of Internet of Things means. There's tons of other different terminologies for it. So machine to machine, IIoT, which is Industrial Internet of Things. I think there's one, the fourth, something I've just forgotten what that means, but what that one was. But so there's a few different terms that people use for it. So essentially, when it comes down to what we're talking about with the Internet of Things, we're talking about devices that are that you have, and these devices, in lots of cases, including the sensors, are not new pieces of technology. They've been around for a while, so it could be a a moisture sensor, or it could be a light sensor, could be touch device, anything like that. They're all different kinds of devices, but what makes these a bit more special now is that the fact that they've got connectivity associated with them, and that connectivity opens up a whole new world for these devices. So, and with these devices and through this connectivity is the sharing of the data. So you've got something that used to be static and it did nothing and was kind of a bit of a dumb device in respects to it did just one task, and lots of these things still do one task. But now that it's connected to the internet, it's able to share data, or it's able to receive commands, or it's been given itself a new lease of life. And so you kind of have, these three elements really is what makes up the Internet of Things. So I guess there has been there's all different market sectors for IoT, and they all kind of face different barriers, different reasons why people are not adopting the technology or are adopting the technology. So you've got warehousing or retail that are kind of have a different approach to it all, and then you've got but for us in agriculture, there is there is a new. Do you want to run this poll?
So Andy, we'll just run the poll as you present. That's okay. So, so you keep presenting, and we'll just let people answer the poll as we go.
Okay. So the the main barriers to adoption, people foresee the risks, and I guess there is quite a bit in the news about the security risk associated with Internet of Things, but there is kind of a way of looking at that as being how is the priority of the device and the priority, and how your system is set up to really is what exposes that risk, and whether there is a real risk facing you. If it's a soil moisture probe that's sending one or two pieces of data an hour over the day, what kind of risk is there, if that's not opening up any channels into any other kind of data you've got. So there's lots of things to kind of look at that's can kind of mitigate that risk, and just being smart about the security elements around the devices. Data portability is another risk that people see. They see that by using these devices, they may not have ownership of their data. They might not have access to it. It's stored within the device itself or the platform that supports that device, and they have to keep paying if they want their data. And so that element of data portability has become kind of a risk that people see. But there's also other ways to look at that, and it's definitely something we'll talk about asking questions of the suppliers of the technology when you're getting into it, about data portability and your ability to utilize your data and own data ownership. Another thing that is a concern to people is the life of devices. So some devices may run off a battery that's got a limited life to it. It's not necessarily batteries that might have a battery that can't be charged. It might have a battery that can't be taken out and replaced. And in some cases, these devices haven't actually been out in the market for as long as they have, as they're being marketed to be able to withstand being out in the market for. So there is that risk associated with this, but I guess that comes with the early adoption of some of this technology. Other barriers to adoption is the connectivity, and there is, although this is coming down, it doesn't, for most, it's not coming down for everybody, this barrier. And there is different styles of connectivity which we'll go into that you require for different Internet of Things devices. But there is that aspect of if if the device doesn't have connectivity, it's it's not leading up to its full potential, and it's not able to really do what you hoped it to do, or it's not really worthwhile. So the other thing that kind of comes off the back of that is that people are with these devices in the ground, you're starting to get a lot more data than you ever expected to get. And if you in the past didn't have an understanding of that data, you've now got that hurdle to get across as well. Is like, what do all these numbers mean that are now being presented to me, and how do they really, how do I use this data to make the decisions that I should be able to do? And that's definitely something that we'll talk to a little bit as well. And then there's the ongoing costs, which can be around subscriptions to the devices themselves, or it could be ongoing software costs and ongoing connectivity costs, which can all mount up if you're looking at rolling out multiple devices in a scenario. Then you could end up with incurring these costs across all of them. So that's definitely another question to be asking suppliers on, whether these ongoing costs are part of that package, and really how you can reduce them. And you can either through purchasing different or products that meet your needs. Rightio. So first of all, we had the those barriers. This is the first of those 3 pillars, being the things themselves, the devices. So on this screen, it's pretty straightforward. It's just there's a bunch of different sensors here. Like a lot of these will work independently of being connected to the internet, but they allow people to work a lot smarter without as soon as they are connected to the internet. So and I guess I put down on here, there is the other thing that is part of the Internet of Things, but doesn't get as touched on as much is the controlling side of things. So as well as the sensing, there's controlling. So you've got and that's what's just above their Agriculture Victoria logo over there is a little solenoid to kind of show that. And that little box up there is just an example of a node. So once you've got a flow sensor, which is in the middle here, it could just be logging data to something, or it could be just operating a dial that's localized. Now with it connected to a node, you can be recording and tracking that data in real time wherever you are via the internet. And the same with the soil moisture probes in the middle, or the weather station. It's once that connectivity is made, then you're able to track this data a lot more, and from anywhere as well. And with the with the solenoids and the controllers, you can then start controlling things from anywhere as well. I should say at any point, if anybody's got any questions, they should definitely ask them as I go along. Right, so the middle part of the 3 pillars is connectivity. And I guess there's lots of talk about the different kinds of connectivity that you can have. We've got at the moment, you have around your house most likely a Wi-Fi network. As you can see, by going by the vertical index there, that gives you your speed. So Wi-Fi is super fast, but it doesn't travel very far. So you've got really fast connection, but not very far in the distance. Bluetooth is another one that also gets used a bit. Similar kind of placement, maybe not as fast in the speed, but similar kind of distances. And you do see that on within warehousing, a lot of kind of Internet of Things devices that are run off Bluetooth, and same with Wi-Fi. Then you've got RFID down the bottom, which is very, very, very small bits of data and at very close range. Then as we kind of go across the spectrum, you start to look towards the, I guess, the holy grail for Internet of Things devices. So the more power that you need to run a device, means the bigger the battery, but that's sort of also connected to the amount of data or the speeds that the data that device can send in. So as you can see right in the top right hand corner, we've got 5G, 4G, 3G, the mobile phone kind of way of connecting devices. It's got great distance, and it's got quite a high amount of data speeds on it. And I'm like, both, I've got a work mobile and a home mobile, and both of them only last me a day without needing charging. So that so that's not going to be really beneficial to be stuck on a pole out in the middle of nowhere where nobody can get to it if I have to go out there every day and charge it. Of course, you can be setting up alternative power sources and be running solar panels and big batteries and things like that to maintain that side of things. But if you're talking about needing hundreds of sensors or even thousands of sensors, you want to start to look towards something that's going to be able to last a lot longer when it comes to the power. So you start working out where all those pros and cons are, and in a lot of times, those sensors that you end up needing in mass are also things that don't really need to send a lot of information all the time. So a soil moisture probe, may take one reading every hour, and it's just, it's a very small packet of data. So when you're looking towards that sort of thing, that's where the this LP WAN comes in, which is low power wide area network kind of devices. And there's a few things that kind of fit within that. And they are, I guess the in that top box there are the two that we have anyway. I'm not 100%, I guess we have all three, but is the LTE-M or Cat M1, and we have NB-IoT as well, that they're available in Australia. And then down the bottom, the one that we're using throughout the LoRa is LoRaWAN, which we're using through the IoT trial. And these are able to, because they only send small packets of data, you're able to have a smaller battery on them, and you're able to have a longer lifespan. So your battery might run for, you could have a battery in a device that runs for, you know, a year or 2 years, whereas, you know, that's obviously not the case when it comes to mobile phones. So I guess I put a couple of circles in here. So yeah, Wi-Fi, really good for video, Netflix, that kind of thing. Then as we're looking out the other side, we're looking at long distances. That's the other thing with these smaller ones that is great for sensors, is that, you know, you can have one gateway on a property, just depending on a whole bunch of other elements, but generally line of sight, you can get quite a good distance out of these things. So you can have, you know, one gateway to thousands of devices if that's required. And because of the small packets of data, you're able to get them around easily, and the batteries last, and all of that side of things. Did someone have a question? I saw something flash. No?
No, Andy, we just might share the poll results. So
Okay.
we'll just pop those on the screen now to give people a sense of where you're all from. The connectivity and Zoom is being obviously hammered in the state of Victoria at the moment, so we've just got a little bit of instability, but that gives you an idea on where people are from, what sort of roles you have, and what sort of industries we've got here. So just have a flick through, and we've got people here that are pretty proficient in the Internet of Things, and probably service providers, and then we've got some people that are just at the introduction phase. So treat this as a bit of a node into the Internet of Things. Thanks, Andy. We'll keep going.
Cool. Yep, no problem. So then I guess the last part of those three pillars is the data that's coming out the back of it. And so, you know, if you used to having recording data manually, you know, you probably only end up having one or two pieces of data about an aspect. When you've got something that's sitting there constantly and its job is to record data about that element, you end up with thousands more data points, and which becomes the next problem of needing a way to really understand what that data is and get clarity around that data. So there is, although it's fantastic that you're getting all this data, if there's no way to interpret, then, you know, is all the trouble of to get it giving you anything relevant out the other end. So one of the key things is that analysis and the dashboarding and the software that comes along and is growing and getting smarter and smarter all the time. So my pictures came up in a reverse order, but so that's an example of a dashboard, but this is an example of soil moisture. And so, you know, if previously you were taking soil moisture tests by digging a hole with a spade, you know, you may not have any data, you've just got your visual interpretation of what's going on. But you can see with this, there's a good indication of where, you know, the refill point is for the ground. You can see when, you know, moisture is being used, when you're being refilled, and it's across the date, you know, like kind of a time series data, so you can see where it's been. You can kind of, from historic data, have a bit of an understanding of what may happen next. Not that you can ever predict the rain, but then you've got the ability to really understand what's happening on the soil, or in all situations where this works. So if it's cool storage monitoring, electricity monitoring, yeah, there's just tank levels, the whole lot. So you can kind of get a better idea of what's happening, and, you know, what conditions start to make those changes to what's happening. I think I'm about to go to Nico, if I can, without turning it all off. So Nico is from New South Wales DPI. He is working on a project called Milking Edge, and he is now in charge. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you very much, Andy. I think I cannot start my video. Oh, yes. So thank you, everyone. My name is Nicholas Lyons. I'm the leader dairy for New South Wales DPI. And I'm also project leader of Milking Edge, a project that works with robotic milking in Australia. And they've asked me today to talk a bit about the dairy experience with IoT. And I would first like to start saying that we can get caught up in the devices and the connectivity, but at the end of the day, it's about the data flows that enable a better management on the farm, that should enable a better understanding of what's happening, that should enable better decisions that are either taken autonomously or suggested to the farmer or the operator, or better monitoring and control of what's happening. So in the case of dairy, it all starts with a dairy cow and a tag or an electronic ID of the RFID type that Andy mentioned before. And that's the device that kind of logs what's happening across the system when a cow moves and traffics around a dairy. So in the particular case of robotic milking, for example, the cows move from the paddock to the dairy and they get milked. So the robots log every time a cow walks into a robot, roughly 100, 120 data points get logged every time she walks in there. There's also sensors that are in there that log things around milk quality, milk production, if the milk needs to go to the vat or needs to be diverted. There's sensors around taking samples of milk. We can then move to devices such as the milk vat or gates, or other devices such as feeders, cow scales, or systems that detect cows on heat. And the idea is that data gets logged at all these points and gets transferred to the control of the operator. That every time, everywhere, the operator can access reports or decision support tools or dashboards where they can control and monitor what's happening. So the idea is that it's more than just devices connected to each other. It's more than devices connected to software, and it's more than data just flowing to the operator. It's data that flows in a circular way throughout the whole system to enable a better understanding, to enable better decisions, and to enable better monitoring and control. So for example, you start having feedback loops between all of them, and devices start connecting between each other and controlling to each other. So for example, the cow arrives at the dairy, and when the cow arrives at a gate, the gate can say, okay, you're a cow 2015, you've come from X paddock, you're meant to go somewhere else, you've been here X amount of hours before, there's so many cows in the dairy at the moment, you should go here. So that decision is taken in real time every time a cow faces the dairy. The same when she walks into the robot, the cow gets milked and the robot can assess that milk quality and in real time decide where that milk should go. Should it go down the drain? Should it go to the vat? Should it go to a different vat because of a different milk quality? Should it go to feed the calves? All that in real time. It knows when the cow was last there, so it knows how much grain the cow should consume in the robot. So again, it's enabling those better decisions to happen autonomously and all that data to circulate and control devices as we go. So it's devices giving control and orders and commands and decisions to other devices in real time, and all that data being logged on the farmer's devices, computers or smartphones, anytime, for the farmer can access it anytime and anywhere. So that's basically it from a dairy perspective. I don't know if there's any questions. So I'll probably hand over to you, Andy.
Okay, thank you very much, Nico.
Any questions about that? Just pop them in the chat or the Q&A. But thank you so much, Nico. But that just gives a a living, breathing example of, I guess, the power of this approach when it's thought through, and all the science and engineering is ironed out.
So just to tap into that last comment about engineering, Gavin, tapping into Andy's comments about connectivity solutions and different ways. A dairy like the one that you're looking as an example on the screen now uses different things, uses RFID from the cow tag, uses Bluetooth to connect different devices, uses hardwired connectivity, uses 4G to transmit this data to the farmer. So at different scales and at different levels, connects different devices in different ways.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Nico. Great example. Any questions? Andy, do you want to make any comments at this stage about that?
No, I'm good. I was going to pass to Mark Sloan, who's my colleague. It's the trial. No, I'm going to do my slide now. So I'll quickly do my horticulture slide, which, so as an example, we just got a couple of examples for a couple of the other verticals to do in industries with the Internet of Things connectivity. So one of the things that's happening in Hort and that's being trialled at the Tatchura Smart Farm is this idea of a closed loop irrigation system. So it's being run through your kind of irrigation controller, but rather than sitting there and scheduling out irrigation patterns, through the use of dendrometers on the tree stem and on the fruit, as well as soil moisture probes under the ground and a weather station, the computer itself is interpreting all those data points and when the irrigation should run or shouldn't. So it's an interesting thing. Experiment. It's a commercial product, but it hasn't been trialed for a full season yet. So this coming season that we're going to be going into will be its first real run for a complete season. The other thing that's kind of happening in Hort from a Internet of Things is these guys that are from a company called Rapid Aim, and they have a fruit fly, all sorts of different pests, but they can interpret them through their trap, which is connected. And so everybody that has their traps on their farms has has an app that can then kind of give them an idea of where those fruit flies are being detected, or other pests being detected in the area. And I haven't spoken to them in a while, but they also have a really extensive LoRaWAN network that kind of supports all these traps. So yeah, it's really interesting and definitely something that's taking a what used to be a job that was done by people going out and manually checking traps and then sending that information around to something that's in real time. They're being able to track and monitor the pests. And okay, so over to you, Mark.
All right. Hopefully I'm online now. No, Gavin's still doing it.
No, it should be you.
You got me?
Yep.
I don't know if you can see my dial, but I'll get cracking. So yeah, just a brief intro. I'm the coordinator for the sheep trial, the sheep Internet of Things trial in this Loddon Shire Serpentine area. I see a few familiar names on the attendees list, so hello to all of you. And I will just talk briefly about some IoT applications for meat and wool, both dairy, sheep and wool, and not dairy, cattle, sheep and wool, and also from a grains perspective. So when you talk about tracking livestock, predominantly you're talking about tracking cattle, and these are products, these types of collars and even tags are quite mature products nowadays. At the moment, though, they're more relevant to the cattle industry rather than the sheep industry, just because of the size and cost of those particular devices, but they're good for tracking grazing patterns and individual movement of cattle as well through drinking points and so on. Next one is a trough monitor. There's really a range of different types of trough monitors on the market at the moment. Some of them are just tank monitors, which have been kind of changed a little bit to suit a trough, which mostly aren't fit for purpose, but there are some specific trough monitors in the market. I believe there's somebody on this webinar who actually makes one. So his name's Nick Seymour from Farmo. He's down in the southwest of the state. So I won't bag Nick's products. He's the same fit for purpose though. Next one is a tank level monitor for measuring storage that might feed troughs, might gravity feed the troughs, so you can measure the storage in those water tanks. These are all connected devices. This one is obviously a solar powered device, so longer amount of time before it needs any sort of attention, whereas a battery operated device, which I'm expecting this one to be, would probably only have 3 to 5 years before we'd have to go and put some new batteries in it, depending on who the producer was. This product here is one that I really like, and it's made by a shearer in Boort, and it's a hay moisture monitor that he has made in his back shed just to help out some of the farms that he knows in that Loddon Shire area. And this is solar powered. You've got your 2 meters, which you can place in the windrow, and it will send you an SMS via this little antenna here. Send an SMS to the mobile that you've registered with this device and tell you when the hay is at the correct moisture level to start baling. And I really like that one because it's just a backyard solution, but it works. And he's done all the work around the software side of it. There's a SIM card in there, so there is some ongoing monthly cost. But with all these devices, you can have an ongoing monthly cost to view that data and to send that data. And the last one I'll show you is one that I saw earlier this year. I saw AWI, Australian Wool Innovation, present this device, which is still in the development stages, but it's really just a scaled down version of a solar powered tag that you'd find on cattle, and they're trying to get it to a stage where it's small enough to be put on the lamb at marking, and cheap enough that you'd buy a large quantity. And the benefits of these, again, are monitoring grazing patterns and animal activity through waypoints. Okay, the next slide I'll talk through briefly, just aware that we're getting through there, is just from a grains perspective, this is your weather station that you would use, and this one has a few different types of devices hanging off of it: wind speed and direction, and a rain gauge as well. I think that's a humidity sensor there. But yeah, that's kind of, when you purchase a weather station these days, it will come with a few different devices on it, not just a rain gauge. This is just going back to what Andy was talking about with the soil moisture probes. This is a graph of what you could expect over 6 months or whatever. This is a bit shorter than that, but this is just the soil moisture at different depths. That's what you get from a soil moisture probe, which can help when you're forecasting about yield and plant growth. Also, as part of the IoT trial that I'm looking at, we've had a real lot of interest in remote security monitoring. This is a solar, oh no, this might be a mains powered high definition camera that will record continuously for security purposes. The last one I'll talk about from a grains perspective is, it's actually John Deere. They've invested a lot of money in the last 5 years making their software, their operations center software, talk to Internet of Things type devices and collecting all that data so that, as you can see here, somebody in a header can have that data at their fingertips. They've also invested a lot of money in making original equipment for their John Deeres that can measure the quality of grain as it's being harvested. So that's pretty much all I've got to talk to you about livestock and cropping, Andy.
No, thank you very much.
I'll hand back to you.
Cool. So I'll go talk a little bit about the trial that we've been running. So the trial's was announced a couple of years ago. We've got to the point now where the first round of applicants, which was approximately 130 farms across the state, are able to start choosing the technology for them. So about 30 plus in each sector. So the trial is run like the map shows. So there's the sheep trial, which Mark is responsible for and is running around Serpentine. We've got the grains trial, which is out in Birchip, so Bull Shire. I'm the horticulture trial at Shepparton and Moira and Shires. Then Maffra, or the McAllister Irrigation District, is the dairy trial. With that, the trial, the connectivity is provided for 2 years to the farmers. So the farmers have 2 years of free connectivity for their devices that they purchase through the catalogue to go into looking at the benefits of them, and also as part of there's 4 of us who for each sector's industry technology coordinators, and we also have 2 farm business economists on the trial team. So they'll be looking at the benefits that the technology is bringing to the farm, as well as the technical side of it all. The catalogue can be downloaded by anybody. It's on the AgVic website. That's the URL down below. Will take you to the digital agriculture section, and then from there look for IoT trial, and then I think it's information for participants, and you'll be able to find the catalogue to take a look at it. It's not necessarily a view of all technologies that are available on the market, but it is a snapshot of different bits and pieces that are available on the market. They're not necessarily broken down into the different industries, as most things can be used for in most places, but there are some things in there that are definitely only for the individual industries. So we are hoping that this round of technology will get on the farm by the end of this year or late this year, and then they'll be looking at the potential of further rounds. But at the moment, this is where we're at for this trial, and there'll be heaps of more information coming out as the tech goes out on farms and what people's benefits and how they're finding it. The connectivity that's provided is a LoRaWAN connectivity, so each of the areas will be covered by LoRaWAN. There is also the opportunity, if people take up a device that's in the catalogue that's supported by another technology or another connectivity technology, to have that funded within their grant application. Right, so open versus proprietary. So I guess I touched on this earlier about the data, and I guess that's the main part of this to talk about, is that when looking at the system that you want, it's really important to kind of take a step back and look at all of the different aspects that you think you might want across your farm. and then from there try to work out, look for different providers that can solve those solutions, but also in doing that start to think about if you need those different devices that you're purchasing to talk to one another. Do the individual companies allow devices to talk to their devices, talk to other providers' devices? Do the providers that you're speaking with allow you to take your data out of the system? What happens when subscriptions run out? How do you go about managing that side of things? Is the technology that you're buying mean that you're always committed to that one provider, or can you take that technology elsewhere if things change in the future? So there's tons of different things to think about. And the real thing about open versus proprietary is there is some devices that will allow you to do all of the above, and then there's other ones that's very much a closed shop. And if you once you've got one device from them, you're best to stay with that within their kind of their ecosystem and continually use those devices. They always work best together in that fashion. So it's definitely food for thought and something to think about. And I think it's I think there's been in the marketplace, there is lots of different solutions out there, and it's definitely been a kind of contentious element for definitely people that have invested heavily in the technology already and are now looking at 5 or 6 different control panels to be able to see everything that's going on across their properties, and they're kind of getting 90% of the benefit out of what they should be getting out of it, because the sensor or the technology they bought into to do this job doesn't actually talk to the sensor that does the corresponding job on the other side. So and they still need that human interaction between the two to make the two work together. But it is something that's kind of moving along. It's definitely being more, people are starting to work out ways to work around this. Yeah, but it's definitely an issue that will continue to grow, as it does with lots of things, all technology really at the moment. And then, so what's coming next? So I guess the first thing, machine learning or artificial intelligence, is kind of all sort of part of the same way of thinking. There is this idea of we're generating so much data at the moment, and like that irrigation for the horticulture that was kind of autonomous in the fact that it doesn't need any, the plan is that it won't need any human interaction to kind of make it understand the orchard and run the irrigation scheduling. There is a lot of thinking and a lot of work being done around all of these things, and I guess the autonomous vehicles fit into this as well, with the ability to crunch all those numbers and make decisions based on itself. And you can kind of, there's quite a few different examples of machines and the thinking and the decision making processes which can be taken on board by the computer once it's able to do that. But to do it does take a lot of data to be able to paint this picture, and that needs to be good data, clean data, to then start to build these AI machine learning kind of engines that can then go on to support that decision making. But with the connectivity and 5G on its way, and there is all these increased elements that are coming, so you're able to it's looking more and more like it's something that will happen. The other one that I was going to mention is blockchain, and although technology in its own right, and same with the machine learning AI thing, it's definitely connected to the Internet of Things and the ability for people to take the data and have it stored in a fashion that you can always see have proof of where that's coming from. And it is a technology that's been looking at quite a bit in the supply chain, especially for fresh fruit or you know, expensive goods, to be able to see the chain of custody and really understand where different elements have come from. It's been looked at quite a bit, obviously, in banking and the financial institutions, but I think it'll be used out a bit more about the you know, within other industries as it sort of becomes a bit more understood. It's the smart ledger or the ledger element of it, which is kind of smart contracts, that is this bit idea of having a uniform understanding of the data and all the interactions that have happened there. I won't prattle on about it too much. 5 minutes to go. So considerations. So these are the kind of things that I have spoken to my farm participants for the trial about what they should look at when it comes to asking suppliers when purchasing the technology. So, you know, to definitely find out about long-term costs and requirements for connectivity. For you guys, it's just requirements for connectivity, and that is, you know, what are the long-term costs in regards to SIM cards, but also maybe the amount of data that gets moved about, and will those costs be increasing over time? The second one down is, you know, to understand how it is that you'll be able to view that data from the sensors, and then it goes on. You know, that thought is also definitely about the analytic side of things and analyzing that data, so, and, you know, making sure that you're getting it in a format that you can understand, but you can also make decisions based upon it. So it's not just a dump of raw data. Yeah, definitely a big one is, if you've already got existing equipment, speak to the suppliers or the suppliers that you're thinking of contacting about how they can interact with the existing equipment that you've got on your property, and where, if it can or can't kind of go together, you know, what are the steps required to make that happen? Or, you know, if you're really interested in the technology, what do you have to change to make that happen? And definitely an interesting one is about is the installation and support of these devices. So they're getting better and better in the way that they're that you can buy stuff that can be shipped out to you, and it's just a matter of initializing them and setting them up, following some instructions, and you're good to go. There's other devices that do require a bit of learning or a qualified person to install, so it's really important to understand where the product is that you're looking at, and how that process should take place. The same goes for support, and it's even more so in the support. If you're buying something that is, you know, mission critical to your business, if it's a sensor that, you know, if it fails, you lose something, you need to understand what the support and what fallback mechanics take place in that case, so you don't become reliant on something that, you know, that if it fails, then, you know, it's all over. Okay, so there is, in the resources, which might be the next slide, is a link to this 11 questions to ask suppliers was put together by our colleagues in regards to soil moisture monitoring, and they've got there, if you follow that link at the bottom of the page, there's 11 good questions to be asking. Some relate only to soil moisture, others relate to other devices as well, but it's a great group of questions to ask. Top website is our digital ag one. You've got the catalogue of apps and devices, the YouTube channel, and that app that's listed on the right is a great app. It works on mobile, on both. I believe it works on Android and Apple, and it's good for testing the connectivity you have around your property. So I see Gavin has popped up a poll to take a look at.
Just keep on going, Andy. So we'll just get people's thoughts and capture that as we go. So we've only got a couple of slides to go, but it's important that we give you these last things that you can do, particularly the tech audit and also the take-home things to consider. Yeah,
so the other thing that we're involved in, or I'm involved in at the moment, is this on-farm digital technology audit, where I sit down with different farmers, and we go through a bunch of questions around the technology you're currently using on farm, build up a picture of where you're at the moment so that you've got that information to take to talk to potential future suppliers if you want to move further into like the technology adoption. And you can do that by looking at the through the following that link to register, or just get in touch with me. And over to you, Rachel.
Great, thanks, Andy. Hi, my name's Rachel and I work for the Drought Support Program for Agriculture Victoria. And one of the things that participants in this webinar may be interested in, particularly those of you who are living in the Millewa region of Northwest Victoria, the GMID or Central or East Gippsland, is the On-Farm Drought Resilience Grant, which is available until the 28th of August this year, and there is an opportunity for people to invest in infrastructure improvements, and some of those things are actually about connectivity and items that you might be able to purchase or co-invest in with regard to antennas and mobile phone repeaters. And there's also an option to purchase or co-purchase a soil moisture probe. But if you're particularly interested in accessing that grant, have a look at all the grant eligibility requirements. They're all available on the Rural Finance website, or you can give them a call directly to discuss your eligibility for that program, which is closing at the end of this month. Thanks, Andy.
Cool. Then I think, yep. So we have did you want to mention this, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this one. So this webinar that you're listening to today is the third in our series of 4 that we've been running, and our final one is next Tuesday, and it's about online networking. So same time, 1:30 till 2:30, and we'll be recording that one as well. And we'll send out this slide pack to everyone today, so you'll be able to register for that one in advance if you're interested in it.
Cool. I think got some. Gavin, would you like to?
So just flick through to the last slide for us, Andy. So essentially, we've left you with a range of things to think about or consider. Like I guess it's a broad area right at the moment. It's an innovation space going through to an early adoption. A couple of the technologies, I mean, some of the technologies is a decade old, but its integration into agriculture is relatively new. But for some people, it is a state-of-the-art alternative, providing great efficiencies and great value to their businesses. And for others, it's right at that early stage of come and see, test it. So what we believe is that if you want to get the most out of this space is just consider where you're at and then network in with the different resources that we provided you with, because you're going to need that sort of ongoing community to grow this space with. So I guess the key thing in terms of a portal into Agriculture Victoria and actually some direct support is really that last dot point. So consider doing the tech audit, and then that will help you get a greater understanding of where you're at and your farm and business. And then from that understanding of current situation, you can consider what you can do going forward. As I said with that cartoon right at the start, it was all about, at some stage we'll be on the boat and we won't be able to stay on the rock. But that's probably not right now. It's not a complete game changer or paradigm shift. But if you think back to when, horses changed to tractors as an example, that, occurred over a decade. But at a point in time, the horses could no longer compete. So without being too melodramatic, that's the reality of this digital technology as well. With that, I'd really like to thank all the panelists and the presenters. What we will do now is keep the webinar open for those that would like to ask some more questions, and there's a little bit of discussion going on in the chat. So we'll definitely address that for you, and then we will provide the video links and the contacts for the experts and some follow-on information. We'll just display the poll results for you, so you can have a consideration of those. And thank you very much for providing that information to us, a bit of feedback. And Andy, I might pass across to you now, and we'll just flick through the questions that are coming up in the chat.
I'm just having a quick look at the questions. So what's the difference between subscription and connectivity costs? So just some suppliers are rolling out like a subscription or a lease for the hardware. They also kind of can bundle in the subscription, like they could bundle a connectivity and a subscription to the software, or so there is a few things that can be a subscription. And connectivity costs, if a device has got its own SIM card in it, there could be an ongoing cost with that data connectivity. Water ordering and irrigation. So for the Hort one, actually it doesn't do any of the water kind of, if that's the question, ordering of the water to the property. It just does the scheduling, so it assumes that you've got the water to the property that you need. Benefits of LoRaWAN. So LoRaWAN stands for, the LO is long, the RA is range, and the WAN is wide area network. So in the truest form for LoRaWAN is that it should be able to travel for a very long distance, and the devices at the other end can have a decent sized battery in them and should be able to last a long time, because although it's also being able to travel a long distance, it's sending very small packs of data. So it's using a low power to be able to transmit these data packets. I'll just quickly, about also off the shelf. Yes. So sorry, I'm trying to read it. At the NDVI question, about also off the shelf.
So that question was really about high resolution satellite data from DEVNA for vegetation and soil property analysis to give near or real-time analytics. Has your program explored it? Or have you?
No, we haven't, but I believe that in AgVic there has been some people looking at this, and I guess that what Mark Sloan might be able to talk about this a bit more, but in my experience, it's been very interesting to be able to use this data also with sensors on the ground to kind of combine two kind of data sets together. To have a look at that. Sorry, go Mark.
Oh, sorry, you got me. Yeah, that was one of the things I mentioned with that John Deere. Well, one of the reasons why I put that John Deere photo in my slides was, because John Deere does, they integrate NDVIs into their platform. So, but AgVic has also spent a lot of time looking at the use of NDVIs. They've been involved with a pastures project a while ago that one of my colleagues could probably talk more about, but I'm not sure that exactly answers your question though, Evna, but you say the commercial vendors offer these now. There is a real range in the different qualities of free NDVIs as well. So you find with the free ones, they don't normally do cloud masking, which is where you cut out the clouds from a satellite pass, and you don't do any benchmarking. So the numbers, a 0.7 one day will be a different 0.7 another day. So just need to watch out for those free NDVIs that you get. They're not as accurate as ones that you have to pay for. Okay. Back to you, Andy.
No worries. Yeah, cool. Does anybody have any other questions or?
Just pop them in the chat. I think we've answered all the ones that are there. If we missed something, please just add them in the chat, but I think we've covered off the key ones that have been covered. Thanks, Deborah. She's Acknowledge your reply, guys.
Cool. Thank you.
Patricia's thanked everyone. So thanks very much, Patricia. It's a challenging area, and it's actually a difficult one to present on, to be honest, because it is such a, it is that emerging technology space. But as it, as it continues to develop, it's really important that we have projects like this that can participate and actually contribute to that, and then make it all that more accessible to everybody else, which is what we're trying to do. Doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in, so thank you everybody so much for your attendance. That's really appreciated, and thanks again to the panelists that have put so much effort into this, quite difficult and challenging topic. But hopefully we've all delivered something to you today, and we will provide opportunities for you to network in to this topic again with a follow-up email in the next couple of days. Andy, anything else in closing? I guess we just want to mention.
No, thank you for listening, and feel free to get in touch if you've got any further questions or you're interested in the tech audit.
And perhaps the last word is this: just make sure you make use of that tech audit. Yep. Thanks, everybody. With that, we'll close off the webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Nico.